A/P Berlin. Days after widespread protests erupted, the head of the International Monetary Fund urged China to abandon massive lockdowns in favor of a more focused COVID-19 strategy. This change would lessen the impact on a global economy already battling high inflation, an energy crisis, and a disrupted food supply. A recalibration of China's strict zero-COVID strategy, which isolates each instance precise because of the impact it has on both individuals and the economy, was suggested by IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva. The largest display of public discontent in decades occurred over the weekend in China, with protests breaking out in a number of cities and Hong Kong. Although some restrictions have been loosened, authorities have not indicated that they will abandon their wider plan, which has kept millions of people inside their homes for extended periods of time. In Berlin on Tuesday, Georgieva said, "We recognize the necessity of moving away from large lockdowns, being very focused in restrictions. Therefore, targeting enables COVID spread containment without major economic expenses." Georgieva encouraged China to review its vaccination laws and put an emphasis on immunizing its most vulnerable citizens. In the second largest economy in the world, lockdowns have halted everything from travel to shop traffic to vehicle sales. To change the general approach to how China examines supply chain functioning with an eye on the spillover impact it has on the rest of the globe, Georgieva suggested. The Chinese economy was predicted by the Washington-based IMF to grow by only 3.2% this year, which would be below the annual average for the world. When asked about criticism of the crackdown on protesters, a spokesman for the Chinese Foreign Ministry defended Beijing's anti-virus campaign and claimed that the law protected the public's legal rights. According to Zhao Lijian, the government is working to provide citizens the maximum safety for their lives and health while limiting the COVID impact on social and economic development. While the effects of China's policy are felt throughout the world, according to Georgieva, the greatest threat to the global economy is high inflation, which forces central banks to raise interest rates, raising the cost of credit for both consumers and businesses. Along with that, governments must provide for the most vulnerable citizens without undermining the work of the central bank through excessive spending. Georgieva responded that the Fed has no choice but to follow the course until credible fall in inflation in response to the question of whether the U.S. Federal Reserve should halt interest rate hikes that are bolstering the currency and exerting pressure on poorer countries. The Bulgarian IMF chief stated, "They owe it to the American economy, they owe it to the global economy, because what occurs in the United States if inflation is not brought under control can potentially have spillover implications for the rest of the world." The US and European inflation rates are still too high, and according to Georgieva, the data at this point says, too early to step back. Before Russia's invasion of Ukraine hindered grain shipments to Africa and the Middle East, according to Georgieva, there were already warning signals of rising famine in the world. She suggested that part of the solution would be to increase investments in resilient agriculture, assistance for small farmers, and initiatives to reduce food waste. "We have to admit that even in the wealthiest families and wealthiest societies, food is wasted every day, even in quantities that could feed the rest of the world," she said. "Look, the biggest solvable issue in the world is hunger. It can be solved. And yet, not only have we not found a solution, but hunger has been increasing over the past few years. As Western allies supported the conflict-torn Ukraine, Moscow shut off the majority of natural gas supply to Europe as a result of its war. This led to an energy crisis. High energy costs as a result have given rise to a chance to accelerate the transition to low-carbon energy suppliers through financial incentives for eco-friendly projects.